Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have an INFP YouTuber, content creator who I'll be interviewing today, and I'll just go ahead and let him introduce himself.
All right. Hello, hello. My name is Matt Sherman. I have the YouTube channel Geek Psychology. Yes, I'm an INFP, and I made over 1,000 videos recently on YouTube.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that's kind of a big accomplishment for me. I'd
Yeah,
stuck
that's
with
so
it
great.
long enough. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you get started and how did you get started? What kind of inspired you?
Oh, geez. I got started I don't remember I think it was almost 10 years ago, actually. Um, I had some ideas for personality type stuff. This was before I understood Myers-Briggs. And I'm big into role-playing games, and so I was attributing like different character classes to different people. And myself, I was like a rogue, and my friend was a warrior, and I was just kind of like playing with personality type. And I started like really getting engrossed in it and started like codifying it and making clear definitions of these different character classes that people are. And for whatever reason, I shared it on Reddit. I was like, "Hey guys, this is my personality typing system," and somebody told me to look into Myers-Briggs and look into the cognitive functions specifically. And so I started to delve down that rabbit hole, and I started connecting my ideas. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, this, uh, you know, uh, maybe what I thought was a warrior is kind of like more like extroverted sensing." And I started making these different connections, and I posted it on a blog. I just made a blog because I was like, well, this helped me understand myself and people. So I needed to share it with somebody else. And then I started getting feedback and like, thank you. It helped. It really made sense of these different personality types and the heavy jargon of cognitive functions. And so I was like, okay, I need to expand and do it more and do it in a higher bandwidth, I suppose. And so I started making videos and doing YouTube, and just never stopped, I suppose.
Dang, that's pretty awesome. I feel
Yeah.
like that's such a I mean, MBTI is just so fun. It's like awesome that that's like what you fell into by like
Yeah.
chance through Reddit.
Yeah. 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 It could have gone way different on Reddit. And luckily, I was pointed in a helpful direction. So.
Yeah. Um, on that, so how did you kind of choose what kind of content to make? Like, how did you like quote unquote choose your niche?
Sure. Well, I think I don't know if it's cliche. I think it kind of chose me in terms of the character classes and analogies and metaphors and stuff that I was really into, and gameful thinking of like making life into a fun game and thinking of life as quests and all these things. It was just something I was extremely into, and because I was so passionate about it and curious about it, um, I just was making content on that, and I guess the right people found that, and slowly the um, I guess the algorithm and my subscribers have shown me that I should focus more on INFP stuff, but I still
Mm.
bring out a lot of gameful thinking. I did a poll recently of my subscribers, and it was like 80% are INFPs. It's like, okay,
Oh, that's
that's a
crazy.
clear signal that what I'm doing for INFPs is really helpful, and it's it pulls on my heart in different directions because I want to make content for all the different types, and I've found some ways of doing that, but definitely leaning more into INFP and INFP friendly stuff. People who are in relationships with INFPs or just curious about them as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably the smartest way to speak to because sometimes I feel like, in thinking of other cognitive functions that maybe are unconscious or like other types, it's like maybe a person wouldn't feel as comfortable talking about it. But when it's your own type, you're just like, 100% this is what I believe in
Yeah,
without it.
yeah, that's definitely been one aspect of it. Is like, I mean, theoretically and experientially, I do understand the cognitive functions, but not to the same level, right? Of understanding of my own workings, my own inner workings. And so I could say, like, this is how it might work for you if you're an INFJ. And oftentimes people are like, yes, that's exactly it. Thank you. You know, you get it. And that's good. But also I don't really feel the conviction around it, I suppose. As when I'm talking about INFP stuff, I'm like, okay, this is how it is because I've experienced this for 10 years, you know? So that's
Which functions do you feel that with?
which ones do I feel? Which part?
Like, as in, which is the easiest where the other one doesn't come as a like, oh, like for me, I feel like NE is like really hard to describe and I know
Mm,
what it is, but then, you know, when I see it in other types like an INTP or INFP or ENTP, ENFP, it's
mhm.
like they use it so well and like freely and like it flows.
Yeah,
But then, yeah, for like me, I'm like, oh, for
yeah.
you, which function kind of has that emotion of like you understand it, but there's like kind of still a clear distinction.
Um, I guess the three would be extroverted feeling, extroverted sensing, and introverted thinking. Those all
Really.
kind of have a little bit of like I don't know mystical magic to them. Something that I'm just not quite fully like I fully haven't wrapped myself around it. I suppose. Um,
But not
extroverted
NI. NI, you're like, that
and
one's kind of good.
so and I was like that, but I've done a lot of it's called parts work. I don't know if you know that term, but it's like a very INFP thing as well. Like I've personified all 8 of these different cognitive functions. They are characters that live within my psyche, the fellowship of my psyche. And I do like I have conversations with them and I ask them for advice and opinions on things. And I have done embodying exercises and things like that. And so like throughout my process or my years of doing this, I've created better intrapersonal rapport, better connections within myself to these different characters. And they're not specifically they're not, 100% accurate to the cognitive functions.
Is
They're
it like
blends of different.
keys of
Mhm.
leadership, like self leadership kind of thing? The
Um
one by Dario Nardi. Like, is
maybe
that kind of like the practices you did to kind of develop it?
I'm trying to think back. I don't know if I remember the actual practices that he talks about in there, but like
Would
um
it be like, I guess to summarize it, would it be you thinking of an activity that uses that cognitive function and then just kind of practicing those activities in order to like develop that and
okay.
like instill.
Yeah, that is one thing that I definitely do. And I have a course called Path of Heroes Academy. And within that, we learn about each of the 8 different cognitive functions. We create a character for them. And then there are actual like real life activities that you do to develop them. Um, and so through doing that and doing my own like metaphorical practices and stuff with it, I have created and I have gotten an understanding of introverted intuiting, I suppose. Um, Came through a lot of studying hypnosis and studying the unconscious mind and how it works. And
Oh, very cool.
it's not the same. It's not like the same level of understanding as extroverted intuiting for me, of course. And it has some kind of baggage attached to it. It's like it feels slow. And I'm just like, okay, NE just wants me to throw ideas out there and play with it and see what happens. And I gotta like stop and clear my mind a bit and shut out the outside and put myself into self-hypnosis or trance or something like that and just trust that the insight will come about as soon as it's done sifting and it's ready. um, but I feel like I do have a pretty good understanding of it, so
Hmm.
it's not my go-to tool though, for the most part.
I see. That's crazy that even you said for like FE is still like a little foreign because I would think as like F, but I guess it's same like for INFJ and INE, but like
Mm,
yeah.
yeah,
Um oh,
yeah.
following up, yeah.
Well,
I was
just
gonna
do you want me to talk about FE or
sure.
okay? Okay. um it's like, so are you an INFJ?
Yeah, that's what I would say my preferences are.
Okay, I
I
just
like found your
totally guessed
channel like
that.
a while ago when I first got into MBTI because I was like trying to figure out my type and I was like, oh, could I be INFP? And then like as I went down, I was like, I don't know if like I definitely resonate way more with INFJ.
Okay. So yeah, it's like for FI and FE, it would be like, as you said, NI and NE in terms of like, okay, we're making a decision with feeling, but how we go about it is different. It's going in opposing directions. And it's like, well, why would you do it that way when you could do it this way? This way is so much better. Right. And of course, none are intrinsically better or worse than either one. They're just, more
Different
fitting for
tools.
different situations. Right. Yeah. Different tools. And so, as I was talking about for NI and NE, it's like, for me, I want to be excited and explosive and curious about all these different ideas and like be kind of overwhelmed by this energy that's coming from the ideas.
Yeah, I feel like it's like very bouncy energy. It's like
Yeah, it is. It is. And so for NI, it's like that's not the way to idea. That's not the way to do intuiting, right? It's a different process, a different way of funneling, like exploding outward or funneling inward, right? Um, so it's like I can understand it, but it's still like I don't quite feel capable of doing it. There's some strange baggage to it again.
so then you would say your FI is very strong. It's like you always know and choose your values.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something I had to learn. I had to learn to articulate my values instead of it just being a feeling, right? I just feel strongly about this. No, it's because this is a value and I've clearly defined it. I've looked at it. I've used it to make decisions for myself and like actually made it a part of my life. Yeah, and FE just doesn't quite do it for me. I'm working on it. I'm working on it all the time. My wife would probably advise me to keep working on it, but that's okay.
Mm.
She's an ENFJ. So.
Oh, I see. That's what pairing is that? That's like, is it Mirage? I can't tell.
No, I don't know the naming for it.
I'm trying to think of the socionics inner type, but I know that INFPs are very common with ENFJs apparently.
Yeah, yeah. But it's still, going along the thread of this conversation, it feels different, right? She does feeling stuff first, but it's like, no, you're doing it the wrong way. Like, come do it this way. Join me. Right? Do it this way. And when I give her a bunch of different ideas and Annie's like explaining, like, have you thought about this? Could be this, could be this. She wants me to just stop. And like, I don't want to think about all these ideas. And I just want to like, get the insight, right? And just go from there. So there's a lot of back and forth, but it is a good pairing, I think.
Oh yeah, I guess because it's one of the pairings that you don't share any cognitive functions consciously, huh?
Correct. Yeah.
Does that feel like kind of whole and complete that you guys do have different tools, but then I could see how like sometimes it kind of causes conflict, particularly maybe for the judging functions?
Yep. That's exactly it. And also the perceiving functions is in like how we perceive the world. Our worldview is a bit different, right? Also, there are cultural differences as well. She's Japanese. But yeah, it's like, I think it's a good pairing because if going into it in a healthy mindset, you think like, she helps me with the judging stuff. She helps me create some order and structure to my life, right?
Especially probably the SE.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like anyone with higher SE, I'm like, they do things and like it doesn't like, like cause them too much friction in that decision.
Hmm. And so, yes, it can be stressful, but also if you just take it as a learning lesson, then I think everything's able to be a positive thing.
Mm. Okay, then the next question I had for you was, could you tell us, us about your content creation process?
I can certainly try. I have tons and tons and tons of notes, and uh, usually I get inspired by something. My extroverted intuiting, my explorer is just like, oh, what about this? What about this? And I start playing with ideas, and then it kind of gets, uh, it settles with me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I feel it. That's a good idea, right? Something resonates with me, and I've throughout the whole, time of making these videos, a lot of it was just because I wanted to make a video on this, so I did a video on this. But I've been learning more and more to follow feedback and advice and do what works, and do some research, add some more strategy to it, and that
Like
has been a
keyword research for YouTube?
keyword research. I have a bunch of tools, a bunch of different programs that I use to really refine and pick out the specific thing that I should make a video on. But oftentimes I also I'll make that, or I'll be working on that, and I'll just get inspired by something else, another idea, and I'm like, okay, I want to do that one first, and create a
I
brief
feel like
outline
any
and
is
just
like
do it.
non-committal.
Yeah, that's definitely a good word for it. Yeah, I don't think any gets any satisfaction from committing or closing any loops, right? It's just like, let's open another one, let's do another one
Wow,
while
that's
we're inspired.
crazy.
Yeah. So
Then kudos to you for 1,000 videos, because yeah, with that kind of energy, it definitely took systematizing it in order to like actually get those products, or like to produce that.
yeah, and one thing that I've been really focusing more on recently, and more and more this year as well, as more AI tools are coming out, is to
So many,
tem-
oh my God.
templatize and systematize. And like, if I record a video, whether I've scripted it or not, which I kind of bounce between both, I can upload it to Descript, which is a podcast video editing program, and it's not called Translate. I'm blanking on English. Gets the transcription, right? Okay, from the audio, and it has it all in like a document type format, so I can read it and I can edit, delete different words, and it will delete the sections of the video. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
really cool. You edit it like a document. Really, really cool. And so once I've got that, I've got the transcription, then I can put that into this massive like chat GPT prompt that I have, that like changes it into different formats, makes a YouTube description for it, and creates chapters and markers and things like that. So like it really streamlines it and
Wait, that's so
systematizes.
awesome. That's like so smart. Because like those small tasks, like they add up, and you're just like, it doesn't push the needle that much, but they're so important.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like when I'm thinking about, I need a thumbnail idea, in which I should do the thumbnails and the title first, I know, but usually I just get inspired by something, I want to do it, and then I find a way of making it happen. But I can put my transcript into ChatGPT, for example, and say, give me 10 different ideas for what could be the thumbnail, right? Or different titles. And then I can tweak that, and then I can choose the ones that fit it better, right? Instead of, as you were saying, like it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I
like
think
the
people
decision
will be
fatigue.
surprised. Yeah, yeah. There's so much to do, and like I'm doing a
Yeah.
podcast as well, and I can upload the podcast and the YouTube video straight from Descript. I don't need to export it to my computer. It does it on the web. I can edit it in my browser. When I'm not in my house or whatever. It just makes things simpler, and that's necessary, I think.
Yeah. Then it makes like the entire process able to like keep going, rather than like, stopping along the way.
Yeah. Well, if it's too daunting, then it's just like, well, I don't really feel like doing it right now, or I don't know where to start, and we get distracted and procrastinate, and that's not what I want to do. So finding tools to make it easier.
Oh, one question I had. So when it
Yeah.
comes to titles, do you go for the strategy of optimizing for homepage, like where someone sees it and clicks, or do you go for the strategy of keywords, or do you blend the two?
Um, that's a good question. So I have, there's a program, I guess, called Maker Suite. The spelling is MakerSuite, Maker Suite. And that does a lot of research. So if I type in some keywords, INFP, self-development, and depression, or motivation, procrastination, whatever the word that I want to target as, it will pull up a list of those videos. It'll say, don't make videos around these topics. they're oversaturated or not
The
enough
competition's too
views
high.
or competition or whatever, and it highlights some other ones that I can make. And so sometimes it'll give me good titles for those. Sometimes it just gives me a good idea, and the title is not great, and I just kind of play with it and edit it. I do my best to make it natural sounding, and put the word INFP in there, and that's about as far as I go in terms of optimizing it for SEO. I just assume like it'll find the people that it's meant to find. Whether that's too optimistic and idealistic, I don't know.
I see that your channel is also kind of on like video games and like kind of personal development.
Mhm.
Um, is it just because you like to just talk about all the holistic things you're kind of into? Like, how do you really choose what percentage of content you make for per like category?
Yeah. I've gone back and forth with that quite a lot because it's called geek psychology. And so the original focus was geeking out with psychology and making characters and, describing the cognitive functions as different elements or whatever. Um, and I did that for like hundreds of videos. And then I kind of like, I don't know, I don't have time to play as many games anymore. I've got 2 kids now. Like
Oh
there's
wow.
just all sorts of things that take up my time. So I don't really have the time to explore in that way as much. But still within me, there is this gameful mindset of like, life is a game. I'm going on a big quest right now. I got to slay these dragons and, all these fun, at least to me, fun
No, it's super
mindset.
healthy. It's a very healthy mindset. There's
Yeah.
a author named Jane McGonigal, and she does
Mhm.
so much research on like gameful. Oh, you know her.
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, super awesome.
And so I just naturally have to put that stuff in there because that's how I think. Um,
Yeah.
and
The
so I
video
do make
game industry is so
items.
big too. It's like actually crazy. Like there's this one Netflix documentary called or like show called Patriot Act, and it was like the video game industry outcompetes all of the major sports like NFL,
Mm,
MLB, whatever combined, which
wow.
is just crazy. Like it's like mind-boggling like how
Yeah.
much a part of like the cultural zeitgeist video games are.
Hmm. Yeah. And I would love to just play them all day, every day, but I can't.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my content based off the feedback has been more INFP stuff, more INFP focus, but I still do add some of those elements to it. Um, and every once in a while, I want to make a video about talking about the different cognitive functions as elements. As I mentioned before, I was watching Airbender, the last Airbender last night, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is FE, this is TI, and I was just like kept playing around with it with my extroverted intuiting, and just felt inspired by it. So I'm going to make a video on that because I just feel I need to, even if it's only going to get 100 views, or whatever.
It's like one of those things though that you just have like so much passion and like have fun talking about
Yeah, yeah,
and like
yeah.
exploring. I know there's like some ideas I'm like, oh, it's so fun, but then it's like, yeah, how do you choose what to actually publish, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah, yeah. That's been an issue for my channel too, because like I'll make INTP stuff and INFJ stuff and cognitive functions, and then life is a game, and then INFP stuff, and the algorithm's like, I don't know where to put this stuff. And it shows up in front of the wrong audiences, or sometimes the right ones, and I'll get comments like, finally, like the algorithm found me, which is a great feeling, but it's definitely not strategic behind it, and I think it's a bit confusing to YouTube.
yeah, I guess yeah, it's kind of crazy just how much of a like mental thing it is to understand the like overview of how these algorithms are like actually working. My next question was for other INFPs who might consider content creation, what niches do you think would be good niches for INFPs to maybe explore? As far as like, ooh, like you could see them doing very well because it could tap into like natural strengths or natural interests.
Hmm. Well, I think whatever that specific INFP is inspired by and really likes, I think just create something around it and share it and stretch your comfort zone. I think that needs to happen. And I know a lot of people, but a lot of INFPs that I talk to are like, well, we don't want to share our art or our stories. Maybe it's too personal. Maybe we're afraid of getting feedback on it. Maybe it's the feeling of like, well, if I put it out there in the world and then somebody doesn't like that, does that mean that they don't like me? Did I do something bad or wrong in that? Am I flawed in some way? And there's all this like confusion and hurdles and obstacles. But I think doing some sort of creative process needs to happen. I don't think it needs to happen. It does need to happen, especially for INFPs who like we need to feel inspired and then we need to find some creative outlet for it or do some things and get inspired by it and do more of it. So if they're into music, make some music videos. If it's writing, make some short stories. It doesn't have to be YouTube. The reason why I felt compelled to do YouTube was one, because I wanted to reach more people, but also because I wanted to practice putting myself out there and extroverting and adding some logical flow to my thought process. And I knew that video was one way of doing that, and getting comfortable speaking was very necessary for the things that I wanted in my life. And so that's why I went down this route. If people want to write stories on Instagram or X or whatever, that's fine too. That's good too. Like it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be.
there's so many platforms. It's actually like kind of crazy.
Yeah. But just doing something and making some sort of decision to make progress on something that is important, I think is the way to go. So,
Yeah, I feel like yeah, it's probably not even just INFPs that feel that like kind of fear of like once I put
mm,
it out there, it has a, scary connotation.
yeah,
But it's like at some point in content creation, like I noticed it for myself where it's just like, okay, regardless of how much engagement from others it gets, it's really important for me to just learn the process so that I could do it long enough that like eventually, like, hopefully more engagement happens. But it's like in the beginning, like recording a video was so scary. And then
yeah.
now it's just like, okay, it's just a video. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is the process is what is important, and learning from each step, each failure, each success is really important. Um, and I often I zoom into the future and look back on my life and think like, if I didn't do this, if I stopped doing YouTube videos and just worked a normal job, how would I feel about my life? And to me, I would regret it. I would regret not stretching myself and doing these things and sharing my ideas. And
hmm,
so that motivates me to just do it. And
like it's made you grow so much as a person that you can't
yeah,
even imagine, like, had you not, like, it's like definitely getting out of your comfort zone.
yeah, yeah. And I've had to learn, as we were talking about, like all the different things that you need to do just to put a YouTube video up there, and marketing and copywriting and course creation and hypnosis and therapy and all these different things would not have happened if I didn't just start. So,
What advice would you have for like aspiring content creators?
uh,
I guess you've given a lot, but if you were to
yeah,
summarize into like, say, a paragraph of like, this is the most important thing for you to focus on to move the needle the most in the beginning.
sure. A lot of people don't create content because they're afraid that it's bad or that it's going to be bad at the start. And actually, that's probably a blessing. That's a good thing. Because if the first thing that you made instantly blew up, went viral, you would freak out and you would be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to create more content like this. And it would be probably more of a struggle and an issue rather than just knowing like it's probably going to suck at the start. Mine definitely did, and still oftentimes I watch a video of mine, I'm like, wow, that's not very good. But doing it, getting it out there, and just knowing that it's a process, and if I stick to it for another 1,000 videos, I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to impact more and more people. And I often think, like, who is there's got to be one person out there that will watch this video and thank me for it. Or maybe I've impacted their life in some way, or changed their thought process, or whatever it is. Just one little thing for one little person could expand out and impact their friends and family and community or the whole world. And I know that's really grandiose and like,
But it's like the
but
butterfly effect through the internet. Like it's actually
yeah,
like insane to imagine just like, it's like theoretical impact, but it's pretty real because you like introduce yourself into someone's psyche where you wouldn't have been there otherwise.
yeah, yeah. And it is. And I have gotten that feedback. Like, thank you. You saved my life. I appreciate you so much. Like, thank you for this and this and this. And it's like, if I didn't make that one video, which maybe I didn't even want to make at the time, or I didn't feel inspired by, but I just like, this is what I do. I make videos. I make content on this. If I didn't do that, then I wouldn't have impacted that one person. And so if I don't do it, then I'm being selfish, and I'm being maybe lazy, or I'm just not thinking of, who
Like
I
you've
could help.
taken on the responsibility of like, that you can positively impact people. So therefore you feel that calling.
Yeah. And, or I know that it's a possibility. Maybe the video is going to be awful and it doesn't impact anybody. That's okay too. Like the next one might. So that's my frame that I often bring to it. That's the reason why I can wake up and keep doing it and feel inspired and excited to do it.
Mm. I feel like people who are in it for like the long term thing that I notice is they're definitely okay with like it being a numbers game where it's just like, they don't take it too personal. If like one does good, one does bad, it's like, it's just all such a learning process through. Would you
Yeah.
say like that's like healthy mentality that has helped you keep going kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to do sometimes because you're like, wow, I only got this many views. But I mean, if you think about, okay, so this video reached 300 people. That's still 300 people. Like, that's a lot of
Yeah, it's like
people.
really crazy. I feel
Yeah.
like I always just try to think of like, because I had a YouTube channel like years ago and it would get like 30 views and I was like, 30 is amazing. So like now it gets like 50. I'm like, 50 is still amazing. Like
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
the beginner mentality when you like like in the beginning it's like so hard. Then like now the ones like if it gets over 1,000, I'm just like, whoa, like complete disbelief.
Yeah. It's an infinite game, right? It's
Yeah.
just keep showing up and keep doing it, and you have to get better at it just by practice, by experience. It's naturally going to happen. Now there are ways to make it more strategic, which I wish I did more of those along my journey.
Like in the
But also,
beginning.
yeah, but it
Because
kind
you
of would
really
have,
noticed, did it really like exponentialize your growth when you started implementing like those kind of tools?
yeah, yeah, definitely. There are standard procedures and things that should be done. Oftentimes I do those, sometimes I don't. So, but it does help for sure.
Mm. What would you say are your like long term, like if you sit down and foresee your future in 10 years, what would you say your goals are for your online platforms? Like ideal situation, what would you want to spend most of your time creating at that point?
Well, I would like to continue to focus on Path of Heroes Academy because I like the feel of it, and I like the live cohorts that we've done, and the participation and people creating these characters together and then using them for problem solving in real life. Metaphorical, like, symbols that help you problem solve. And I've heard the responses from those of like how I kind of like logged on to my envoy, my extroverted feeling character, and walked up to some people and shook hands, and it was great. And just that kind of freedom of getting unstuck from one specific mindset has been really helpful. So I do want to focus more on that. Um, and I've been working on a tabletop role-playing game for it as well, where you actually like create the characters
Oh,
and
so
play as the
fun.
characters and embody those different aspects. And so I'm just like, I don't know technologically speaking what the world is going to have in 5 years, 10 years, but
Yeah,
I
no, it's
imagine
crazy.
that
The
that
rate of
will be
AI.
possible. Yeah. I imagine people will be able to, I don't know, create these characters and have fun with them and understand everybody's MBTI type in a positive way and use that to like bond with people and stop wars. I don't know if that's too optimistic, but like I feel self-understanding is the key, and through that, then you can appreciate other people's strengths and weaknesses, and that can just expand out endlessly. And doing that in a gameful kind of way. I guess that's my answer.
Mm. I feel like, yeah, that's a lot of fun applications of how to like reach people who like aren't interested in just MBTI. Like I think games just introduces this like other layer because people spend hours and hours. So like they naturally just learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had, of course, feedback from both sides of like, this is so me. This is completely my niche. Like playing with these fantasy kind of ideas and cognitive functions and self-development. I've had other people be like, you're making it too childish. And if
Mm.
that's so, I mean, they can find somebody else. My content's not for them, and I'm okay with that now. I think at the start I was not okay with that. And so, for the people that it works for, I think it's awesome. And it worked for me and it worked for a bunch of other people that I've worked with. So.
Like you trust in your tribe now because now you've like been able to pinpoint it's okay if it's not for everyone because you understand that some people that it is for, they're like 100% with.
Yeah. And also, I mean, even INFPs will write me or get into one of my courses and be like, well, I'm not a gamer. Is it okay? Is it okay that I join this? Or they join in like, oh, actually, I'm starting to play some games now with my kids, and like they go down that route. And if they're not into it, that's fine too. I know that like not everybody will fit into one like clear niche avatar, right? Not everybody is the same as me, and that's okay, right? But they can still find things from what I produce that are helpful to them, or just a little wedge of a different mindset could change everything.
Yeah, like the different perspectives and also that you've probably gained throughout, life experiences.
Yeah.
Um, one question I have. As far as like when it comes to video games, which cognitive function do you think games engage in most? I guess that's very broad because there's so many different types of video games, but like say for RPG games, which one do you think that one like engages in?
Yeah. Yeah. It does. It depends on the game, and it depends on what people want to do within the game. If they're like min maxing, like making sure that their their character is perfect and they have the right gear and armor and weapons and all these other things, and well, maybe that's a TITE thing, right? But if it's like I just kind of want to go explore and like walk around the towns and see what
Like Stardew Valley kind of thing.
yeah, or just seeing like an NPC, like a non-player character, and just watching them and wondering like what their life is like within the game. I mean, to me, that feels very much like something I do in real life while I'm walking around Tokyo, but also in
Hmm.
game too. It's like FINE, just kind of like putting myself into them as a character and just imagining what life is like,
Oh,
embracing
interesting.
wonder. Yeah.
I almost feel like I would have thought that those would be like kind of SI or like I think of like Stardew Valley plus Animal Crossing. It's just like, ooh, the slow life is good. Let's just take it at a slow pace.
Yeah. That could be in there
But
too.
then
If it's a
I could
calming,
see how
relaxing
FI and
thing.
E, that's just interesting how, yeah, all the cognitive functions could be viewed
Yeah.
differently for the video games.
Yeah. And some people play games to bond with other people. And that could be a very FE thing. Some people, like high paced, action heavy games. Maybe that's an extroverted sensing thing. Um,
Yeah, the ones who like rage quit, it's like for sure SE.
could be. I'm not going to say either way, but yes.
Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. It was super fun to learn about just, yeah, your personal perspective and your personal experience growing your channel and producing 1,000 videos. Like, that is honestly pretty incredible. Um, I'll
Yeah,
definitely leave links for your channel, your website, and everything down below where people can find you.
cool. And thanks for having me, Liz. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me talk about the, the things that I love to talk about.